Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 10th round of the GP4 Offline Championship of 2019. We are at the halfway point of the season, well, near the halfway point of the season, but we are here at the famous Silverstone circuit in Northamptonshire, United Kingdom, for the British Grand Prix. I'm JW97, and I'm joined today by Rahul Patel.
Hello.
Rahul was, of course, in the commentary box yesterday for GP2, where he commentated a very exciting qualifying session. And the irony is, he's here because, his AI is taking part in this practice session. But it seems to be a common trend with these practice and qualifying commentaries, especially for test drivers. Isn't that right, Rahul?
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, so Rahul Patel, thanks to a request towards Franco Gamba, will be taking part in this practice session. Of course, this being the British Grand Prix, of course, and being British, he is in the car for Red Bull this week, and he's the only free practice driver in the car for today. Yuri's just gone for a bit, but he will be back in just a little bit to give us the screen share, and then we'll get underway with practice. Well, there is a lot to talk about during this practice session, but I'll save my breath for that practice session. Last time out at the Austrian Grand Prix, it was a very, very exciting race, probably one of the best wet races we've had for quite a while, and it saw Franco Lopez, despite a weird strategy from Mercedes and getting a 5-second time penalty for overtaking Laura Chung under wave yellow flags, went on to take his third victory of the season and increase his lead in the Drivers' Championship. Not by much, but still increased his lead now to 11 points ahead of Joseph Willers, who obviously have the home support coming here this weekend at Silverstone, along with Amar Khan and other British drivers as well, such as Jared Fosbury, Chris Chatfield, and of course, George Roke. And you could also say, in a way, Evan Byrne, although he doesn't like being referred to as this being his home Grand Prix, but it's the closest that he's probably got to a home Grand Prix, given that we don't go to Ireland. But anyway, the weather should be up on your screen, and it is. We've got a dry practice session coming your way. So I think without further ado, let's get underway. So we wait for the loading screen, and we got a very good shot of the curbs that are usually on display here at Silverstone, and some very nice looking tarmac. Why am I judging tarmac all of a sudden? But anyway, we wait for the loading screen to go through, and we will be at the wing pit lane. And here we are. So we are now in the pit lane. Of course, the tyres we are using for this weekend is, of course, the hard tyres. And we are in the end of the pit lane with Rosetta Martinez, the Manor driver. And we just wait for the first set of cars to go out onto the track before talking about the huge pile of topics that I need to go through, because it's not like anything's been going on this past weekend, is it? Only kidding. Anyway, but Martinez, ironically enough, is the first to come out onto the track for this practice session. So out on the track goes the Filipino, and we should be able to see him on the track very soon. The camera should pan towards him, and there we go. So let's get on with the huge pile of topics then. So I think obviously the first one, to address the elephant in the room, of course, we are now in the sign-up season. So obviously this past Sunday, we had the sign-ups open for the 2020 season. Of course, it is the last season to use car performances based on real life, because, of course, in 2021, that is when the fantasy era begins. Now, I'm not going to go through the rumours about certain drivers going elsewhere or whatever. I'm going to leave that for the pilot episode next week. Yes, the GP4 OC News is back next Tuesday with the pilot episode, so be on the lookout for that. That's when all the rumours will come out, along with the pick order as well, so that you guys are aware. So anyway, what I will talk about from that sign-up video, though, is of course the Manor, and it's ironic that we're looking at a Manor at this point, because of course, after teasing it a few times since I've been here in this practice session, the 2020 Manor livery was officially revealed to you, and I guess in a way, given it is their last season, it is going to be a perfect send-off for them, because let's be honest, in real life, when they pulled out at the end of 2016, they never really got a proper send-off, really. They just disappeared due to bankruptcy. But this time around in the OC, because we're nice, we're giving them a proper send-off with that livery, with the likes of "Thank you for the memories" on the side pod in joined up writing, and on the rear wing it says "One last hurrah." So judging from the likes that was given out on Twitter when I shared the photos of the Manor, because I thought, why not put the pictures up, it seems that it's got a positive reception, the livery. So I can't remember if you reacted to it, Rob, but what do you think of the 2020 Manor livery? You don't have to be questioned, because I made it, by the way.
Yeah, it's a good livery, actually. Good standing ovation for them in their final season. We'll see if they can score points as well for next season. as well. Would be nice as well.
Hopefully they can get probably one good result next season before they bail out and get replaced by whatever team in 2021. Obviously, Yuri's keeping that one close to his chest, and by the time next season sign-ups come about, we should hopefully have the answer and the identity, really, of the new 11th team. But anyway, well, the other thing about that sign-up video, of course, was that the calendar. Now, one thing I want to point out with that calendar is that the dates that were on there, they are provisional, right? I will say that they are provisional. Now, the reason why I say that is mainly because of a certain race that was supposed to happen at the end of the 2018 season, which was, of course, the endurance races. Now, of course, as you may remember, the endurance races last season got postponed because of technical issues with GTR2, which Yuri wasn't able to solve. But obviously, Spa has been scrapped, of course. It is just going to be just Le Mans. But basically, the dates that were on that sign-up video, they all depend, really, on... they all really depend... I'll get onto that in a bit, Yuri, that he's just sent me in the chat. They all really depend, really, on whether that Le Mans race actually happens. If it does go ahead as planned and Yuri's able to find some kind of solution, whatever solution that might be, then those dates will remain. But if Le Mans yet again gets postponed and maybe even cancelled altogether, if Yuri gives up on the whole idea, if he's still struggling, of course, then just like this season's GP4 calendar, it will all be pushed forward a week. So just be aware of that. But for now, they are the dates. It just really all depends on that Le Mans endurance race. But one other thing about that calendar as well, as you would have noticed, there is a TBA race there. Now, obviously, for anybody who needs a reminder, first of all, there is only 21 races on the calendar because of a certain track that got cancelled after this season. That, of course, being the Canadian Grand Prix at Montreal due to continuous issues with the circuit Gilles Villeneuve, a little bit like Marina Bay. However, unlike the Marina Bay Street Circuit, it ain't getting replaced. So it's only going to be 21 races next season as opposed to 22. So in case anybody needed a reminder, Montreal is not on the calendar before anybody decides to bring that one up. But the other thing as well is that TBA race. Now, we've known for the last few weeks, haven't we, Ra, that there was always two races that could have been a bit of a question mark going into the 2020 season because, of course, we're using the calendar that F1 originally intended to use before a certain virus decided to ruin everything. So we got some lap times on the board, as you can see, and a bit of contact there between Lopez and Fosbury. But yeah, there was question marks around two specific races, weren't there, Ra?
Yeah, indeed. There is doubts on the Vietnam track. We don't know if it will happen or not. We'll find out soon enough.
You say that, but we do know what's going to happen with that. Now, obviously, the first one we need to point out is the Dutch Grand Prix. There was obviously some concerns about it because of recent DAT file problems with that track. But given recent tests that Yuri has done with that track, I am happy to say that the Dutch Grand Prix, as we speak, is going ahead next season. Happens, Zandvoort is on the calendar next season. We can assure you of that. Whether the banked version of Zandvoort will be made before that time is another question. But if not, and... well, that's what Yuri told me. He said it's not 100% tested, but he has said there has been some positivity. There's been some positivity around it. Whether the bank version will be launched before that time, though, is another question. Hopefully it will, but if not, then we'll have to stick with the 2005 version, which is obviously the latest one available to us on Grand Prix 4. But Hanoi, on the other hand, well, that is another question. Well, that's another thing, isn't it? Well, because, as expected, that track has not been made yet for Grand Prix 4. And given the time frame, it has been decided that the Vietnamese Grand Prix will not be on the calendar in 2020. The race will, of course, be replaced. Now, as you may have seen, there is a premiere about to be premiered this coming Sunday at 5 p.m. BST, which will consist of the identity of Vietnam's replacement. So this Sunday at 5 p.m. BST, via that premiere, we'll be finding out what that track will be that will replace the Vietnamese Grand Prix next season. I'm not going to say because I know what that track is, and I'm not going to say anything to Ra either, in case he decides to leak it. And speaking of Ra, it looks like Car's trying to overtake Patel on the track there. But anyway, leave your predictions in the stream chat, guys, what you think will be the replacement for the Vietnamese Grand Prix, or what you hope will be the replacement for the Vietnamese Grand Prix. Now, the one thing that Yuri wanted me to point out as well is that at some point, talk about livery spots will open around next week for people who are interested. There's a bit of contact there between the two racing points. Rule number 1 there, guys, never hit your teammate. But luckily, no major damage whatsoever as we get a look at a replay there of the two. You want to describe that, Rob? What happened there?
Yeah, you can see just rolling much and trying to go around the outside. George Rugg did leave him space, but then, doesn't leave too much when they get to Pasto, and then they ended up touching. But luckily, both of them survived. None of them get damaged, and they carry on.
Yeah, it's very lucky indeed that neither of them got damaged. Otherwise, I think Otmar Safnauer would have been having words with Roland, and George probably will be having words regardless. Anyway, the talk about livery editing spots will open around about next week for people who are interested in that. So, because of course, in 2021, we're obviously going into the fantasy era, which means nothing is based on real life anymore. So that means we're free to basically do what we want with the series, basically, and that can include custom liveries. Now, if anybody's interested in that, talks will probably start around about next week. So just be on the lookout for that if you are in Discord or wherever. Anyway, so what else was I going to bring up? I think there was something else I was going to bring up. Oh, yes, of course. Next week, not next week. Yeah, next weekend, of course. Thanks to info from Flo yesterday, the GP2 2020 signups will open next weekend. Not this coming weekend, next weekend. And for anybody wondering about what the mod is being used for that, unless Flo says otherwise, it looks like it's going to be the same mod that he's currently using, because still as we speak, an F2 mod has not been made yet for Grand Prix 4, which is a bit of a shame. But anyway, whilst we were speaking about those topics, which I finally got out of the way, and need to get my breath back on all of that. So anyway, as you can see, there has been some times on the board. Carr currently tops the session ahead of his teammate Lopez by 0.2 of a second. Gal currently 3rd. Mackenzie in 4th position with Catalan in 5th. Willows in 6th, Patel 7th, Chung in 8th, Thomas in 9th, and Motrin in 10th position. And speaking of that, Mackenzie has actually reminded me of another thing that I was going to bring up there. So there was something I needed to bring up. Of course, as we speak right now, there has been a lot of sign-ups in the 2020 sign-ups, but as we speak right now, I think currently 5 current top-class drivers are still yet to sign up for the 2020 sign-ups. They include Jay Mackenzie, the 2 Williams drivers, which are, of course, Felix Sontag and Lincoln Parner, and the 2 Toro Rosso drivers, which consist of Matteo Catalan and David Kupark. So, obviously, they have until this Saturday this time, by the way, not this Friday, because you may remember, I think, during the past season discussion stream, right, that you even perhaps hinted at the possibility of increasing the sign-ups by a further day. Well, it is actually going to happen this time. He's actually gone through with it. So you have until Saturday at 10 p.m. BST to sign up.
It was highly requested, so I decided to go through with it.
Yeah, so you now have an extra day to sign up, guys. So you have until Saturday at 10 p.m. BST to sign up, rather than Friday at 10 p.m. BST like in previous seasons. As you can see, we're riding on board with Evan Byrne, who looks like he's got a special helmet for this weekend, unless this is a permanent helmet now, because we know that the race at France, that was a one-off, but it looks like he's brought a special helmet with him to have the Irish flag on the top of his helmet, which is a very nice touch. As Jay Mackenzie, speaking of Renaults, he's out on track, and he's one of the drivers still yet to sign up to the 2020 sign-ups, but he has obviously got, of course, until Saturday to sign up, so plenty of time for him to sign up, and hopefully he does. I expect all 5 of them to sign up at some point, but if not, then we may end up with a Joel Hutter and Etienne Jones situation from last season. Anyway, back to the real time now then, as we've got Fosbury holding up a queue of cards at this point in time. Looks like one of them is Miklos Gal. I'll presume it's Miklos Gal, because I do believe that Rahul Patel was holding up a Mercedes a little bit earlier on.
Yep.
I was correct there. So Jay Mackenzie now then, just going around these section of corners as Motrin tries to find a way through on a Toro Rosso in front, whilst also locking up
wide.
Yeah, it looked like he got a bit of oversteer there going into the corner. And oh, okay, so it's actually kind of a retro helmet from Evan Byrne, in fact, because it's actually the helmet that he used back in 2011, in fact. That he's kind of given a bit of a jab there to Florian Volker, saying Flo definitely didn't steal the design. Just a little jab there to Flo from him in the stream chat. But Anyway, but yeah, it is kind of a retro helmet to the helmet he used back in 2011 here at the British Grand Prix, which ironically he actually won. In fact, he used for the entirety of 2011, I should say. As Gal there just makes a little mistake coming out of turn one there. And, Gal needs to really bounce back after last time out, doesn't he, Rob? Because obviously he got taken out on the first lap and lost a little bit of ground to both Lopez and Willows, and now finds himself tied on points with Laura Chung.
Yeah, it's been a better season for Gal, but yeah, with that retirement, it has cost him. So yeah, he has to get that form back if he was to fight for a championship.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I wouldn't rule him out. Definitely not either Chung, Carr, or even Gamba as well, because as we've seen in the past with Florian and Volker, the second half of the season could turn around. And speaking of Chung, she improves on the time, but she remains in P8 as Sontar goes up into 12th position there in the Williams, so a good effort for him at this point in time. And meanwhile, we look at Chatfield, who is coming into the pits this lap anyway, and looks like he'll no longer be holding up that McLaren he's currently holding up at the moment. Not sure which McLaren that is that he's currently holding up. I think it might be Tomaselli from the looks of it, who currently finds himself in 9th position, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, Tomaselli, of course, was obviously unlucky last time out in Austria, was looking good for some more points after what has been yet another impressive season so far for the Italian, but a fiery engine put paid to that, and he ended up scoring 0 points. In fact,
And
as
the
well.
Willows.
Yes, Willows has gone to the top of the timing sheets. I think the British crowd will be happy about that because it's currently a British 1-2 at the moment here at Silverstone. But it is only practice, let's not forget. We obviously got the qualifying coming up in around about 17 minutes' time as Mackenzie's coming back into the pits this time by. What was I saying earlier? Oh, it was about Tomaselli, wasn't it? It was looking good for points, but unfortunately his engine blew up, which prevents him from getting more points as much as trying to go for that roundy outside pass again. But it's a bit sneaky there from the Ferrari, whoever that was.
Yeah, that was Chung, I think. Yep, it was.
Yeah, very sneaky there from Chung as Motrin just peeled himself back into the pits there. And looks like Chung's going to get herself further held up by the car in front, the Toro Rosso. As Chung didn't improve that time by Chung still finding herself down in 8th position behind the Red Bull test driver of Rahul Patel. And so that's that really. As Evan put in the stream chat there, R.I.P. Hanoi, you won't be missed.
Definitely.
It's harsh. He hasn't even had a Grand Prix in real life. It's the only way you can ever access it is by going on R-Factor or even on F1 2020. Because they didn't put it onto F1 2021, as Chung makes a very good move there on the Toro Rosso, but it is only practice. It's not quite the race yet. But I don't even know if Hanno will ever be on an F1 calendar again in real life. It looks like it'd probably be less likely, judging from everything that's going on there, which seems a bit of a race that you put all these resources to make a track, parts of a track anyway, for a street circuit, and then it all just goes to waste. Unless some kind of support series or local series happen on that track, I don't see any revival for that Hanoi street circuit, to be honest with you, but it is what it is, as Gao currently being held up by the manor there. And
Evan put in the chat, I'm driven in it and I'd rather be punched in the face for 2 hours.
To be honest with you, Evan, I can understand why, because on F1 2020, even Yuri said itself, it is a pain in the ass to drive. So I can agree with you on that one, because the traction is just a pain around there as well.
Yeah.
And yeah.
George Roke goes 9th.
George Roke currently in 9th, who, speaking of him, had a better race in Austria, let's not forget. Probably a much needed race as far as he's concerned, because after a great 2018 season, it hasn't been the best of seasons so far for George. Been quite unlucky a few times during the course of 2019, but seemed to get his form back together last time out in Austria, despite a little bit of a collision with Paolino Tomaselli.
Yep.
You think this could be a turn in form now for George Rowe, or do you think he could still struggle for the remainder of the season?
I do think it will be a turning form. It will depend. He's had some inconsistent form, but I do believe it could be a turning point for him. Needs to be consistently clean. Needs to stay out of trouble, at least, just to be able to be there.
Absolutely. Titkov, meanwhile, improved, but he still remains in 22nd behind teammate Rosetta Martinez. Kupok only down in 19th after quite a good showing at Austria, where he finally got some good luck. It doesn't seem like it's going well for him, but at the moment it is only practice. Things could change as the man who's at the top, Joseph Willows, he's coming back into the pits this time by, as we now look at Miklos Gau, who of course won here back in 2016, of course, after a collision between Mackenzie and a back marker handed him the victory. So that's that. Now, the one thing that we hope doesn't end up being a repeat from last season here, as Chung, meanwhile, is able to improve over to 5th place, is what happened last season at Silverstone, where Maxim Titkov, who we were speaking of a little earlier, had a bit of a weaving glitch going on, and it kind of made a bit of an impact on the front a little bit, to the point where the top 6 teams, and even Evan Byrne at one point, were all fighting for the win. Hopefully that doesn't become an issue this time by, although we did get that brief glitch happen in GP2 last week in Austria, but luckily it didn't make that much of an impact at the front, whilst we were having that incredible battle between Anderson and Griffiths. But hopefully that doesn't become the case, but I would think that will probably be less likely that will happen. I think it's one of those one-off occasions that usually happens. It comes in and comes out whenever it pleases, basically. But yeah, it was kind of a funny moment, though, wasn't it, Ral?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to join in, like, the actual incident. Like, it happened because he had the engine failure, but he manages to somehow pit and get new tires. Then all of the top cars start lapping him, and I think what happened is that they were trying to still lap a ghost car. They went for the overtake line all the time, which made the weaving glitch. So it was basically it was a freak bug that, like, 1 in 1,000 chance of happening, to be honest.
Yeah, it was one of those things. As hopefully it shouldn't do, but hopefully it doesn't happen this season. As Chung, meanwhile, goes up to 4th. Whilst we were talking, Videri went up to 8th, and Byrne has got himself into the top 10. So at the moment, the top 4 consisting of Ferraris and Mercedeses at this point in time. As Chung just makes her way down the Wellington Straight. And let's see if she can try and improve even further on this lap. While she's 900ths off Willow, she hasn't gone up on a personal best in the first sector, as she is coming up also to a bit of traffic in front. Hopefully she doesn't get held up in front by the 2 cars in front, as Motrin now gets himself into the top 10 to go up, well, into 10th. So as Patel, meanwhile, who's down in 9th, is now looking like he's holding up an Alfa Romeo, which is a bit odd given he's in a Red Bull, but I guess the power of the Alfa Romeo is definitely helping it out at the moment. So speaking of which, Videri now trying to get by on Patel. Can he get the move into Stowe Corner? No, Patel holds on for the present moment. And anyway, it didn't really matter because Videri is now coming into the pits, but it looks like Patel might get held up by a Williams in front. So anyway, we now look at Chung, who's still down on a personal best in the second sectors. We have just over 5 minutes to go in this session, well, just under 6 minutes to go, I should say. Chung now then making herself, making her way around the final 2 turns as Kupok improves on his time to go up into P13. P14 I should say, as Chung doesn't improve, remains in 4th position and still goes on for another lap, trying to gather as much data as she can ahead of this weekend's British Grand Prix, as she now makes her way through the arena section. I think at one point it was called Arena, but I think one of them is actually called, one of the corners around there is called Aintree, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, Mackenzie gets a little bit out of shape there, as you saw there, just at the beginning there of Brooklands. So just pushing it probably a bit too hard there, so we're going to take a look at a replay of it actually. And you just saw there, just gets a little bit of oversteer there, and it kind of affects his entrance into Luffield as well. So a bit of an error there for Jay Mackenzie, showing he's pushing hard in this session. Currently finds himself in 6th position. Meantime, somebody who else has improved right now is Roland Moultron. He goes up into 9th position, gets himself in front of the Red Bull test driver Rahul Patel. As meanwhile, we now ride on board with Chung, who is now caught up to the back of this traffic. And one of them consisting of Gabriel Gomez, and the other one, of course, being George Roke, who's struggling to find a way through on Gabriel Gomez at this point in time as they make their way out of Beckett's and Chapel. Now onto the Hangar Straight they go, And Roke still struggling to find a way through on Gomez. He's going to try and do what his teammate did to him a little bit earlier without making contact, but it's not going to work. And all it does is allow Chung to get through. So that's that really. Oh, that was close there as Gomez went into the pits. Nearly took Chung's front wing off in the process there. But luckily, no damage done there. But Chung has now got clear track in front. The same can't be said, though, for George Roke behind, although given the pace of that Ferrari, I should expect Chung to probably get away from Roke, and then Roke should begin to get that clean air in front. As Chung makes her way towards the first 2 turns on the racetrack, as she now makes her way through turn 3, and now into, I believe that's called Shannon, actually, that corner, as now going through into the double left-hander, and no, it's not named after the Shannon group that bought 40, that corrupt business. But anyway, as Patel there just made a move on the Williams and looks like he's now going to get some clear air. Whether he can get into the top 6 or not by the end of this session, we'll have to wait and see. As Chung makes her way through Lovefield, but still down on her personal best at this point in time. Finds herself in 4th, 5 tenths behind her teammate Joseph Willows. And Chung, of course, tied with Gal for 3rd in the Drivers' Championship and looking to see if she can get herself into that championship fight if she can by the end of the season. But we'll have to wait and see, of course, as we are close now to the halfway point of the 2019 season. Time goes fast, really, doesn't it, Ra?
Yeah, it does.
Especially when you're having fun, at least, that's for sure.
Yep.
As Chung 3 tenths down on Willows in the 2nd sector. And she'll now make her way towards Stowe Corner. Around the right hand as she goes. As she'll now make her way down towards the final 2 turns on the racetrack. Through the left and then into the double right-hander, and now Chung making her way down the pit straight, and I don't think she's going to improve, but we'll just double check anyway. And note she remains in P4 in the Ferrari. So far then, with just under 3 minutes to go, this is how the top 10 looks like. It's Willows currently top with Carr in 2nd, Lopez in 3rd with Chung 4th, Gal 5th, Mackenzie in 6th with Catalan in 7th, Federi in 8th, Motrin in 9th, and Patel currently rounding out the top 10. As we now look at Evan Byrne with his retro helmet going around these section of corners now, then as he makes his way towards the Wellington Straight. As meantime, De Rosa has improved to go up into P8. Sontag got up to P16 that time by. That pushes Patel outside of the top 10. Byrne 6 tenths down on Willows in the 1st sector there. As we look at, speaking of Ferrari, back at Chung, it seems that the autocam is a little bit obsessed with her, to be honest with her. It seems to be kind of a trend with the autocam, to be honest with you, with certain drivers. It seems to be with every track they go to. It seems to be obsessed with one certain driver throughout the entirety of the session. It seems to change every week, which I find a bit odd. Sontag up on his personal best there, but we just saw just on the back end of that onboard camera there, it looked like that Sontag got a little bit out of shape there going into the beginning of Wellington there. Hopefully that doesn't affect his time too much as he looks to improve on his lap. Just over 1.5 minutes to go now then in this practice session. We're getting close to the qualifying session ahead of the British Grand Prix as Willows gets himself held up there by the Williams of Lean Campana, and they'll all get one more lap in before the session comes to an end, unless some of them get the pit board coming out. Tomaselli goes up to 8th in the McLaren. He improves. Willows, that was his final lap. He's coming back into the pits. So that's that. Looks like he's going to stay top unless one of the Mercedes or even Laura Chung or even one of the Red Bulls tries to top Willows in the end there as Vaderi starts his final lap. Byrne is going to cross the line. The Renault driver, currently P13, stays in P13 for the moment as we ride on board with Matteo Catalan coming around the final turn. 1 minute to go now then in the session. And it doesn't improve as Felix Sontag still up on his personal best. So without the mistake, what else could he have done? That's the big question as we now look at Sontag coming down the pit straight. Across the line he goes and he remains in 16th position, but probably could have been a bit more if it weren't for that mistake going onto the Wellington Straight. So we now look at Lopez now then, probably about to start his final lap very soon. Across the line he will go, and he doesn't improve. He's got one more lap as Martinez is up on his personal best in the first sector there, but then loses it in the second sector. I wonder if he got a little bit held up or he's got somebody trying to overtake him behind. I'm not 100% sure. No, it doesn't look like Gomez is close enough unless he made a mistake in the second sector, then I'm not sure, unless he just didn't have the pace for that second sector. I'm not too sure. But Martinez then comes around the final 2 turns as we look to see who is going to be the last to cross the line in this session as we have just over 10 seconds remaining. 10, 9, 8, 7 now, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, there you go, 1, And 0, checkered flag is out, and that is the end of the session. I believe that Renault was the last one to cross the line, that Renault being Jay McKenzie, so he was the last to cross the line. Tomaselli doesn't improve, remains where he is. As we now look at David Cupart, he comes around the final corner. And let's see if he can improve. I don't think he will, but let's see. Nope, remains in 15th. Campana stays where he is in P20, as the Haas there didn't have time to do another flying lap. Probably out just get some mileage. Roque doesn't improve. Videri doesn't either. We now look at Matteo Catalan on his final lap. Just goes around club corner now then. Let's see what Catalan can do. Onto the Hamilton straight. Catalan crosses the line. And no improvement from him there. Sontag doesn't look like he's on improvement, unable to find that time that he seemed to have lost a little bit earlier as he came down onto the Wellington straight. Felix Sontag now then comes across the line and doesn't improve. De Rosa crosses the line, no improvement for him, no improvement for Gal either. We look at Lopez, the championship leader, who makes his way down at the pit straight, and Lopez crosses the line, no improvement from the Argentine. Roland Mochin didn't get enough time in. Martinez is coming back into the pits this lap, so now we look at Gabriel Gomez, who makes his way down the hangar straight, and he now will come up towards Stowe corner now then, and let's see what he can do. Round Stowe corner he goes, swooping it round the right-hander as the man in front goes into the pit. Gomez now then comes towards the left-hander, to the left, and into the right. And Gomez now then will make his way down towards the Hamilton straight. And I don't think he's going to improve, but we're going to check anyway. He's down in 19th and stays in 19th. As Jay McKenzie, the last person to do a lap, crosses the line and doesn't improve, remains in 6th place. A good session for him nonetheless. And there you go, that is practice over. So at the end of that, Willow's top with Carr in 2nd, and then rounding out the top 3 is Franco Lopez. So what did you make of that session, Rahul?
Yeah, pretty good session. Surprisingly, Rahul Patel was in 12th, unfortunately with the traffic, which cost him a lot of time. But it is what it is for him. But yeah, we'll see what happens in qualifying.
Indeed, of course, this was only practice. They were probably doing a lot of fuel runs anyway, so hopefully that changes. That's not going to be a reflection of Red Bull's pace overall. Well, that is it for the practice session. We're going to take a little break. We'll be back on the air in just a little bit with the qualifying session. But in the meantime, I've been JW97, he's been Ra, and we'll see you in just a little bit for the qualifying session ahead of the British Grand Prix. See you in just a little